The emergency session of the Galactic Council took place in complete silence for the first time in recorded history. The massive chamber that usually echoed with the voices of hundreds of different species was filled only with the quiet hum of life support systems and the occasional whisper of alien delegates trying to understand what they had witnessed. The holographic displays showed the aftermath of the battle at the Kepler defense line. The Scorvian horde, which had been an unstoppable force for millions of years, was retreating back to the outer rim of the galaxy. Their fleet was broken, scattered, and fleeing from an enemy they could not understand or defeat, but the real focus of attention was on the human forces which had achieved something that no military theorist had thought possible. They had defeated a superior enemy force while suffering minimal casualties, and they had done it using tactics that challenged every principle of galactic warfare. General Vex stood before the assembly, but his earlier arrogance had been replaced by something that looked like respect mixed with fear. His red eyes no longer glowed with confidence as he addressed the other delegates' honored representatives. He said, his metallic voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "We have witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. The human military operates on principles that challenge everything we thought we knew about warfare. They have shown us that individual initiative, when properly coordinated, can overcome any advantage in numbers, technology, or evolutionary adaptation." The Xanthari delegate activated her crystalline voice synthesizer. "Fleet Admiral Hannah," she said, "the tactical analysis of the human victory shows capabilities that exceed our most advanced military theories. How does your species train individual soldiers to operate at such levels of tactical competence?" Ambassador Hannah stepped forward to address the assembly. She had been waiting for this moment for 3 years, knowing that eventually the galaxy would be forced to recognize what humanity truly represented. "Honored council members," she said, her voice calm but carrying weight that seemed to resonate through the chamber, "humanity has always believed that our greatest strength lies not in our technology or our numbers, but in our people. Each human soldier is trained not just to follow orders, but to think, adapt, and overcome challenges that no central command could anticipate." The Mokari delegate made clicking sounds that translated to questions about human military doctrine. "Ambassador Hannah, your soldiers demonstrated the ability to coordinate complex operations while maintaining individual tactical independence. This appears to contradict the fundamental principles of military organization. How do you achieve such coordination without sacrificing individual initiative?" Hannah smiled as she prepared to explain the concept that would change galactic warfare forever. "We do not train soldiers to be perfect components in a military machine," she said. "We train them to be human beings who can think creatively under pressure. We teach them that every individual matters and that personal responsibility is the foundation of collective strength." The implications of her words sent ripples of conversation through the chamber. The alien delegates began to understand that humanity had developed something entirely new in military science. They had created individual soldiers who could operate as complete military units while maintaining perfect coordination with larger formations. A delegate from the Aquarian system stood up to ask the question that everyone was thinking. "Ambassador Hannah, your species has demonstrated military capabilities that suggest you could conquer any other species in the galaxy. What are your intentions regarding galactic expansion and dominance?" The chamber fell silent again as every delegate waited for her answer. This was the moment that would determine whether humanity would be seen as a protector or a threat to galactic civilization. Ambassador Hannah looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces, watching her with mixtures of fear, respect, and curiosity. "Honored delegates," she said, "humanity has no interest in conquest or domination. We believe that the galaxy is strongest when every species can contribute their unique capabilities to the common good." She paused to let her words be translated into the various alien languages before continuing. "Our victory against the Scorvian horde was not achieved through human strength alone. It was achieved because we fought alongside allies who brought their own capabilities to the battle. The Valkyrie provided firepower. The Xanthari contributed advanced technology, and the Mokari offered biological expertise." General Vex stepped forward, his metallic voice carrying across the chamber. "But Ambassador Hannah, Your forces alone defeated the Scorvian horde. The rest of our fleets were merely observers to your victory. That is not accurate," General Hanna replied. "Your forces provided the framework within which our soldiers could operate. Your ships created the defensive line that allowed our soldiers to focus on boarding operations. Your weapons drew enemy fire that would have otherwise targeted our forces." The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs as the delegates began to understand what she was saying. Humanity had not defeated the Scorvian horde through superior strength, but through superior integration with allied forces. The Xanthari fleet commander spoke through her crystalline voice system. "Ambassador Hanna, are you suggesting that human military doctrine is based on cooperation rather than domination?" "That is exactly what I am suggesting," Hanna replied. "Human soldiers are trained to work with anyone who shares their objectives. We do not see other species as competitors or obstacles, but as potential allies who bring different capabilities to common challenges." The Mokari delegate made clicking sounds of amazement. "This explains why your soldiers were able to adapt so quickly to Scorvian tactics. You were not fighting alone, but as part of a larger coalition, even though your tactics were different from ours." Hanna nodded. "That is correct. Our soldiers were trained to understand and work with Valkyrie firepower, Xanthari shielding, and Mokari biological expertise. They did not replace your capabilities, but complemented them in ways that created tactical advantages that none of us could have achieved alone." The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. Humanity had not just demonstrated superior military capability, they had demonstrated a completely different approach to warfare, based on cooperation, adaptation, and individual initiative working together. General Vex, news of the first engagement spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Emergency sessions were called on every major world as governments tried to understand what had happened. The impossible had occurred. The Scorvian horde, which had been an unstoppable force for millions of years, had been defeated by humanity, a species that most aliens considered primitive and weak. But the method of victory was what shocked the galaxy most. The Scorvian horde had evolved over countless generations to be the perfect biological weapons. They adapted to every form of attack, learned from every defeat, and overcame every defense through pure evolutionary pressure. They had consumed entire civilizations and turned their knowledge into biological advantages, yet they had been stopped by something they had never encountered before: individual creativity multiplied by perfect coordination. The human soldiers had not relied on superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They had used something far more dangerous than any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. They had used human intelligence applied to warfare in ways that no other species had ever. Imagine Captain Yuna stood inside the command center of a captured Scorvian capital ship, studying the biological control systems that had been designed by millions of years of evolution. Her squad had taken control of the vessel in less than 2 hours using tactics that the Scorvian crew had never seen before. The enemy ship was 3 kilometers long and contained over 10,000 Scorvian warriors. Each warrior was a perfect biological weapon bred for combat in any environment. But they had been defeated by 50 human soldiers who thought faster than evolution could adapt, sir, she said to Commander Soman through her communication system. The Scorvian command structure is completely biological. They communicate through pheromone releases and electrical nerve impulses. If we can disrupt their communication, we can prevent them from coordinating their adaptive responses. Commander Soman was coordinating similar operations across dozens of captured ships. Each boarding party had discovered something different about Scorvian biology and tactics, but they were all sharing their information through the tactical network that connected every human soldier. All units, she said, use the information from Captain Yuna's squad to implement communication disruption protocols. The enemy cannot adapt to our tactics if they cannot communicate with each other. This was the key advantage that humanity brought to warfare. Every soldier was an individual intelligence, capable of learning and adapting, but they were also connected to every other soldier through technology that allowed them to share knowledge instantly. When one soldier discovered an enemy weakness, every other soldier knew about it immediately. When one squad developed a new tactic, every other squad could implement it within minutes. The human army was like a single mind with 100,000 bodies, each one capable of independent action. The Scorvian horde had never faced an enemy like this. They were used to fighting species that relied on central command structures where orders had to be passed down through chains of command that could be disrupted or destroyed, but human soldiers did not need orders from distant commanders. They carried the entire command structure in their own minds and could make tactical decisions that would have required hours of planning for other species. Sergeant Minho led his squad through the corridors of another captured Scorvian vessel. As they moved through the ship, they encountered new types of biological weapons that had been specifically evolved to counter boarding parties. The creatures were fast, strong, and designed to kill anything that entered their territory, but they had been created by evolutionary processes that took generations to implement changes. The human soldiers adapted to new threats. In real time, when Minho's squad encountered a corridor filled with acidic gas that would dissolve any known armor, they did not retreat or call for different equipment. Instead, they analyzed the chemical composition of the gas and discovered that it could be neutralized by combining two compounds that their suits carried for different purposes. Within minutes, they had created a chemical countermeasure that allowed them to pass through the corridor safely. The information was immediately shared with every other soldier in the fleet, and the Scorvian gas weapon became useless. This pattern repeated itself thousands of times across the battle. The Scorvians would deploy a biological weapon that had been perfected over millions of years of evolution. Human soldiers would analyze it, understand it, and develop a countermeasure that made it ineffective, but the humans did not stop with simple countermeasures. They began using the enemy weapons against the Scorvians themselves. When they discovered that certain biological compounds could disrupt Scorvian neural functions, they began manufacturing those compounds and using them as weapons. The alien fleet commanders watched in amazement as human soldiers consistently achieved the impossible. They saw individual warriors solve problems that would have required teams of scientists and engineers for other species. They witnessed small groups of humans coordinate complex operations that would have taken entire fleets to accomplish. General Vex contacted his own military advisors privately. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that challenge every principle of warfare that we understand, he said. Each individual soldier operates at a level of tactical competence that exceeds our best officers. Xanthari fleet commander was analyzing the human tactics with her most advanced computers. Fleet Admiral, she said to her staff, the humans are not just adapting to enemy weapons, they are creating new tactics faster than our analysis systems can track them. The Mokari Bio fleet leader was perhaps the most impressed of all the alien commanders. These humans have achieved something that biological evolution never produced, he told his crew. They have individual organisms that can think independently while maintaining perfect coordination with their group. This is more advanced than any biological system in our databases. As the battle continued, the true scope of the human victory became clear. The Scorvian horde was not just being defeated, they were being systematically dismantled by an enemy that could outthink, outadapt, and outmaneuver them at every level. The human soldiers had captured dozens of Scorvian vessels, disabled hundreds more, and turned the enemy fleet into a collection of floating prisons. Every captured ship provided new information about Scorvian biology and tactics, and that information was immediately shared with every other soldier in the fleet. By the end of the first day of combat, the Scorvian advance had been completely stopped. The creatures that had destroyed 3 major fleets and threatened the entire galaxy had been defeated by 12 human ships and 100,000 individual soldiers who thought faster than evolution could adapt. The alien fleet commanders began to understand that they were witnessing something that would change galactic warfare forever. Traditional military doctrine was based on the assumption that individual soldiers needed to be controlled and directed by superior officers who could see the bigger picture, but humanity had proven that individual soldiers could see the bigger picture for themselves and make tactical decisions that contributed to the overall success of the mission without sacrificing their ability to handle unexpected situations. Admiral June stood on the bridge of the Soul, watching the tactical displays that showed the results of the battle. The Scorvian horde was retreating for the first time in their species' history. They had encountered an enemy that could out-adapt them, and they had no evolutionary response to human creativity. The Galaxy was about to learn that the age of biological warfare was over. The age of intelligent warfare had begun. The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars like a crystal city made of light. Ambassador Hannah walked through the long corridors made of some strange alien material that seemed to glow from within her footsteps. Echoed in the empty hallways as she made her way to the emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. 3 years had passed since humanity first joined the Council, and it had been 3 years of being treated like unwanted children at a family dinner. The other alien races looked down on humans, calling them primitive and weak. They said humans were too young as a species to understand the complexities of galactic politics and warfare. Today was different, though. Today the Council had called an emergency meeting because something terrible was happening in the outer regions of the galaxy. The Scorvian Horde had broken through the defensive lines that protected civilized space. 3 entire fleets belonging to different alien races had been completely destroyed, and now panic was spreading from world to world. Hannah entered the main chamber and immediately felt the weight of hundreds of alien eyes watching her. The chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in circles that went up toward the ceiling like a giant amphitheater. Each seat held a different alien species, and most of them looked at her with expressions that ranged from suspicion to outright hostility. The Valkyrie delegate stood up first. His name was General Vex, and he was over 8 feet tall, with skin that looked like polished metal and eyes that glowed red in the dim light of the chamber. He pointed one of his forearms at Hannah and spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding machinery. Human ambassador, we have gathered here today because the Scorvian Horde threatens all civilized life in this galaxy. 3 of our most powerful fleets have been destroyed, and we need every species to contribute their military forces to stop this threat. Hannah nodded and remained standing calmly, even though she could feel the hostile energy coming from the assembled aliens. She had been preparing for this moment for months, knowing that eventually the other races would demand that humanity prove their worth. The problem is, General Vex continued, his red eyes glowing brighter, that humanity has no real military tradition. Your weapons are primitive chemical projectiles and crude missiles. Your ships are small and weak compared to our dreadnoughts. How can such a backward species help us against an enemy that has destroyed our best forces? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Xanthari delegate nodded their crystalline head, while the Mokari representative made clicking sounds that Hannah knew meant approval. Other species began speaking in their own languages, creating a cacophony of alien voices, all saying the same thing: humans were too weak to help. A tall, blue-skinned alien from the Aquarian system stood up and spoke in perfect Galactic standard. Your species has been part of this council for 3 years, but you have contributed nothing to our common defense. You have no massive battleships, no planet-killing weapons, no advanced technology that could help us. Why should we continue to allow you membership when you offer nothing in return? More voices joined in the criticism. The chamber filled with the sounds of dozens of different species, all expressing their doubt about humanity. The Valkyrie General Vex raised his arms for silence, and the chamber gradually grew quiet. Human ambassador, he said with what sounded like satisfaction in his metallic voice, the Council has decided to give your species one final chance to prove your worth. We demand that humanity contribute military forces to the Kepler defense line, where we are preparing to make our stand against the Scorvian Horde. Hannah felt a small smile appear on her face. This was exactly what she had been hoping for. The other species had no idea what they were asking for. They thought they were setting humanity up for failure, but they were actually giving her the opportunity she had been waiting for. Kepler defense line, she said, speaking clearly so everyone could hear, is where you want humanity to send our forces. That is correct, General Vex replied. We expect your forces to take their place alongside the fleets of the major powers you will have the honor of fighting beside the Valkyrie Imperial Navy, the Xanthari Defense Force, and the Mokari Biofleetan. When our forces arrive, Hannah asked, will the Council be there to observe our contribution to galactic defense? Of course, the General answered, his red eyes gleaming with what looked like anticipation. We will all be there to witness humanity's first and likely last contribution to a major galactic conflict. The chamber erupted in what sounded like alien laughter. Various species made sounds that expressed amusement or satisfaction. They clearly expected to watch humanity fail. spectacularly and then use that failure as justification to remove humans from the council permanently. Hannah waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. Her voice was calm and confident in a way that seemed to puzzle some of the alien delegates. Honored council members, she said, humanity accepts your challenge. We will deploy our forces to the Kepler defense line within 72 hours. We request that all council observers be present to witness our contribution to galactic defense. The confidence in her voice created a moment of silence in the chamber. The aliens had expected pleading or excuses, or perhaps a request for more time. Instead, they got immediate acceptance and what sounded almost like eagerness. General Vex leaned forward in his seat, studying Hannah with his glowing red eyes. Human ambassador, your confidence is either admirable or foolish. We will indeed be there to observe. And when your primitive forces are swept aside by the Scorvian horde, perhaps your species will finally learn the humility that comes with recognizing your proper place in the galactic order. Very well, Hannah replied, still smiling slightly. We look forward to demonstrating humanity's proper place in the galactic order. As the emergency session ended and the various alien delegates began filing out of the chamber, Hannah remained standing in her place. She waited until most of the aliens had left before activating her secure communication device. The small device projected a holographic interface that connected directly to Earth through quantum entanglement. The face of Admiral Park appeared in the projection. He was sitting in his office at Space Command headquarters, and Hannah could see the anticipation in his eyes. Ambassador Park said, "How did the council respond?" "Exactly as we predicted," Hannah replied. "They want us to prove our worth at the Kepler defense line. They expect us to fail, and they want to watch it happen." Admiral Park nodded grimly, and our response. Hannah looked around the now empty chamber before answering. "Operation Revelation is approved, Admiral. Send the Third Fleet." The Admiral smiled, and Hannah could see the same expression on his face that she had been wearing throughout the council meeting. It was the look of someone who knew something that others did not. "The Third Fleet will deploy immediately," he said. "How many ships should we send?" Hannah thought for a moment about the massive alien fleets that would be gathering at the Kepler defense line. The Valkyrie would bring their dreadnoughts, each one the size of a small city. The Xanthari would contribute their advanced cruisers with quantum shielding. The Mokari would send their bioships that could regenerate damage. 12 ships, she said. Admiral Park raised an eyebrow. "Only 12. The aliens will think we are not taking this seriously." Hannah smiled again. "They will think exactly what we want them to think, right up until the moment they discover what a human army really looks like." The communication ended, and Hannah walked slowly out of the chamber. She had work to do in the next 72 hours. The galaxy was about to learn something that would change everything they thought they knew about warfare and about humanity. As she made her way back through the crystal corridors of Nexus Prime, Hannah could not help but think about the expression on General Vex's face when he realized what humanity was actually bringing to the Kepler defense line. It was going to be a lesson that the Galactic Council would never forget. The Scorvian horde arrived like a living nightmare made manifest in space. Their ships were not built but grown from organic materials that pulsed with alien life. Each vessel looked like a massive creature with weapons that were actually biological. Organs capable of spitting acid or firing bone projectiles at incredible speeds. The alien fleet commanders had fought the Scorvians before and knew what to expect. The horde always attacked in the same pattern: overwhelming numbers, massive biological ships that could adapt to enemy weapons, and creatures that had been bred for war across 1,000 generations. These were not just soldiers but predators who had consumed the life force of dozens of civilizations. Admiral June stood on the bridge of the Soul, watching the tactical displays as hundreds of Scorvian vessels emerged from hyperspace. The enemy fleet was 3 times larger than the combined alien defensive forces, and each ship bristled with weapons that could melt through any known armor. The first wave of Scorvian attackers moved forward like a biological tsunami. The creatures piloting the ships were not intelligent in the way that other species understood intelligence. They were driven by pure instinct to consume and destroy everything in their path. General Vex opened fire first with his massive Valkyrie dreadnoughts. The plasma cannons created walls of superheated energy that should have incinerated anything in their path. The quantum torpedoes exploded with The force of small stars sending shockwaves through space that could crack moons, but the Scorvian ships adapted as they flew through the bombardment. Their organic hulls began growing thicker armor plating even as the plasma beams struck them some. Ships were destroyed, but others learned from their deaths and became stronger. The Horde had evolved this ability over millions of years of warfare. The Xanthari cruisers fired their advanced energy weapons, creating beams of pure destruction that cut through space like swords of light. Their quantum shields deflected the Scorvian return fire, while their weapon systems automatically adjusted to find weak points in the enemy hulls. The Mokari bioships released clouds of living weapons that sought out enemy vessels like predatory fish. Each weapon was a small creature designed to burrow into enemy hulls and destroy vital systems from within. The Mokari had been fighting biological warfare for centuries, and their weapons were specifically designed to counter organic enemies, but the Scorvian horde continued to advance. The creatures learned from every attack, adapted to every weapon, and overcame every defense. This was why they had been able to destroy 3 full fleets and threaten the entire galaxy. The human soldiers watched this exchange with professional interest. Lieutenant Juan led his squad as they analyzed the battle patterns appearing on their tactical displays. The Scorvians were following predictable evolutionary responses to the alien weapons, sir, he said to Commander Soman. The enemy ships are adapting, but they are doing it slowly and in predictable ways. They strengthen their hulls against energy weapons, but they have not encountered our boarding tactics. They are focused on ship-to-ship combat and have not prepared for individual soldier infiltration. Commander Soman nodded as she studied the same tactical information. All units, she said through the communication network, we are seeing standard biological adaptation with evolutionary improvement cycles. The enemy expects to fight ships, not individual soldiers. Implement Protocol 7 and show them why evolution cannot compete with innovation. What happened next? Redefine space combat for every species in the galaxy. Instead of engaging the Scorvian ships in traditional vessel-to-vessel combat, the human soldiers began to move. Individual soldiers activated their propulsion systems and began flying toward the enemy fleet like angry insects. Each soldier was too small for the Scorvian weapon systems to target effectively, but carried enough firepower to damage much larger vessels. The alien fleet commanders watched in amazement as thousands of human soldiers swarmed toward the Scorvian ships. This was not a tactic that appeared in any military manual. Individual soldiers did not attack capital ships in open space. It was supposed to be impossible, but the human soldiers were not following traditional military doctrine. They were implementing something entirely new in galactic warfare. They were turning space combat into something personal and immediate. Sergeant Yuna led her squad as they approached a Scorvian cruiser that was 3 kilometers long and covered in biological weapons. The ship was firing at the alien fleet with organ cannons that launched acid projectiles, but it had no defense against individual soldiers. Her squad spread out and began cutting through the ship hull with molecular saws that could slice through any material. The Scorvian crew had never faced borders before and did not know how to respond to enemies that were already inside their ship. Captain Minho coordinated the boarding operations from the Sol as he watched thousands of human soldiers disappear into enemy vessels. Each boarding party was a complete military unit capable of independent operation and tactical decision-making. The soldiers did not just cut holes in the ship hulls. They analyzed the enemy vessel architecture, identified critical systems, and began systematic destruction of everything that kept the ships operational. They targeted power generators, navigation systems, and weapons controls, but most importantly, they began psychological warfare against the Scorvian crews. The Scorvians were predators who had never encountered prey that fought back effectively. They were used to overwhelming their enemies with superior numbers and biological adaptation, but human soldiers were something they had never evolved to handle. Private Sue found herself inside a Scorvian ship corridor facing a creature that stood 3 meters tall and had arms that ended in bone spears. The creature was designed to kill anything it encountered in close combat, but it had never fought a human soldier. Instead of engaging the creature directly, Sue analyzed its movement patterns and identified its sensory organs. The creature relied on pheromone detection and heat sensing to locate enemies, so she activated her armor, cooling systems, and deployed chemical countermeasures that confused its senses. The creature became disoriented and began attacking shadows, while Su moved behind it and destroyed the neural cluster that controlled its motor functions. The creature collapsed without ever understanding what had happened. This scene was repeated thousands of times across dozens of Scorvian ships. Human soldiers encountered biological weapons that evolution had perfected over millions of years, but they countered them with technology, creativity, and tactical thinking that no evolutionary process could anticipate. The alien fleet commanders watched their sensor displays in growing amazement. The Scorvian ships were not being destroyed by massive weapons or overwhelming firepower. They were being systematically disabled by individual soldiers who fought with intelligence and adaptability that exceeded anything the Horde had ever encountered. Within hours, the first wave of Scorvian attackers had been completely neutralized, not destroyed by ship-to-ship combat, but captured and disabled by soldiers who had turned the enemy vessels into prisons for their own crews. General Dex contacted Admiral June, his metallic voice filled with amazement. "Human Admiral, what we have witnessed defies every principle of space warfare. How do individual soldiers defeat capital ships, Admiral?" June smiled as he watched the tactical displays showing his soldiers completing their missions. "General, individual soldiers do not defeat capital ships. Individual thinking human beings defeat any enemy that relies on predictable responses to threats." The Scorvian Horde had encountered something that their millions of years of evolution had never prepared them for. They had met an enemy that could out-adapt them through intelligence, creativity, and the uniquely human ability to find solutions that no one else would consider. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when an unstoppable force met human determination. 3 days later, the Kepler defense line became the most watched location in the galaxy. Every major news network had ships positioned at safe distances to record what everyone expected to be humanity's humiliating defeat. The greatest military minds from hundreds of species had gathered to witness the final test of human worthiness. The Valkyrie Empire arrived first with their massive dreadnoughts that looked like floating cities made of black metal. Each ship was over 5 kilometers long and bristled with enough firepower to destroy entire moons. The plasma cannons mounted on their hulls could melt through any known armor, and their quantum torpedo launchers could crack planets in half. General Dex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devastator, watching as more alien fleets continued to arrive. His red eyes glowed with satisfaction as he counted the incredible display of military might gathering around the defense line. This was what real military power looked like. The Zentari Defense Force came next, bringing their sleek silver cruisers that seemed to bend light around them. These ships possessed advanced shielding technology that could deflect asteroid impacts and energy weapons that fired concentrated beams of pure destruction. The Zentari had been fighting wars for over 10,000 years, and their military doctrine was considered the most advanced in the galaxy. Then came the Makari biofleet, and their ships made everyone else uncomfortable. These vessels were not built but grown in vast biological factories. Each ship was a living creature bred for war, with organic hulls that could repair themselves and weapons that evolved to counter enemy defenses. The largest Makari ship looked like a massive sea creature with tentacles that could crush smaller vessels. As each fleet arrived, the alien commanders communicated with each other, sharing tactical information and expressing their confidence about the upcoming battle. The Scorvian Horde had never faced such a combined force, and many believed this would be the final battle that would end the threat forever. But then something strange happened. The human fleet arrived, and confusion spread through every alien ship in the defense line. Where the Valkyrie had brought 50 massive dreadnoughts, and the Zentari had contributed 30 advanced cruisers, and the Mokari had sent 20 bioships, humanity had sent exactly 12 vessels. The human ships looked ordinary, almost boring. Compared to the alien vessels, they were gray and angular, with no obvious weapon systems or impressive size. The largest human ship was barely 300 meters long, which made it smaller than the maintenance craft that serviced the Valkyrie. Dreadnought's Admiral June stood on the bridge of the Yu's Soul, watching the tactical displays that showed the positions of all the Allied fleets. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, showing none of the excitement or nervousness that filled the alien ships. His uniform was simple and practical without the elaborate decorations that marked the other fleet commanders. Captain Minho walked up to the admiral carrying a datapad with the latest intelligence reports. Sir, he said, the alien fleets are requesting our tactical specifications. They want to know our weapons capabilities and troop numbers. Admiral June smiled slightly. Let them wait, Captain. We will reveal our capabilities when the time is right. The communication channels filled with voices from the alien fleet commanders. General Vex was the first to contact the human flagship directly. Human Admiral, he said, his metallic voice carrying clearly across the quantum communication link, we see that your species has sent 12 ships to face an enemy that destroyed 3 full fleets. That is correct, Admiral June replied calmly. The Valkyrie General paused as if waiting for more explanation. When none came, he continued, your largest vessel appears to be a light cruiser by galactic standards. Where are your dreadnoughts, your battleships, your planet crackers? We do not use such classifications, Admiral June answered. Our ships serve different purposes than yours. The Xanthari fleet commander joined the conversation, her crystalline voice ringing like bells. Admiral June, our sensors cannot detect any major weapon systems on your vessels. How do you plan to engage the Scorvian horde with such limited firepower? You will see, Admiral June said. More alien voices joined the communication channel. The Makari Bio fleet leader made clicking sounds that the translation system converted to words. Your ships appear to have large cargo holds, but no obvious troop transport capabilities. How many soldiers have you brought to this battle? Admiral June looked at Captain Minho, who was trying not to smile. Our complement is sufficient, he told the aliens. The alien fleet commanders grew increasingly frustrated with the humans' refusal to share tactical information. They had expected either impressive displays of advanced technology or desperate pleas for help in understanding the coming battle. Instead, they got calm confidence and mysterious non-answers. A new voice joined the communication channel. It was Ambassador Hannah speaking from the observation ship that carried the Galactic Council delegates. Honored fleet commander, she said, I believe it would be beneficial for all of us to observe the human deployment procedures before making final tactical decisions. General Vex made a sound like grinding metal. Very well, Human Admiral, please proceed with your deployment. We are all quite curious to see what 12 small ships can contribute to this battle. Admiral June nodded to Captain Minho, who began entering commands into his control console. All ships, this is Sol Actual, begin deployment sequence, launch all pods and establish perimeter formation. What happened next made every alien in the defense line fall silent. The 12 human ships began releasing thousands of small objects that spread through space like clouds of metal insects. At first, the alien observers thought they were seeing some kind of primitive missile attack, or perhaps a desperate attempt to create a debris field for defensive purposes. But as the objects moved further from the human ships, they began to unfold. Each small object was actually a deployment pod, and from within each pod emerged something that made the alien military commanders question everything they thought they knew about warfare. These were not missiles or drones or any kind of automated weapon system. These were soldiers, individual human soldiers in advanced combat armor floating in the vacuum of space. Each soldier carried personal propulsion systems that allowed them to maneuver with incredible precision, personal shields that could deflect energy weapons, and most importantly, individual intelligence that could adapt to any situation. The numbers were staggering. From just 12 ships, humanity had deployed over 100,000 individual soldiers into space. Each soldier was essentially a one-person fighter craft capable of independent operation and tactical decision-making. General Vex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 100,000 individual combatants, he said, almost whispering, how is this possible? Our largest troop carriers can only deploy 10,000 soldiers, and they require massive support. Fleet's Captain Minho answered through the communication channel. General, you are about to learn the difference between moving soldiers and deploying warriors. Our people do not need massive ships to be effective. They need only the tools to do their job and the intelligence to use those tools properly. The alien fleet commanders watched in growing amazement as the human soldiers began forming attack patterns that shifted and flowed like living organisms. They moved with a coordination that seemed impossible for such large numbers, yet each soldier maintained individual freedom of movement and decision-making. Commander Soman led the first wave of soldiers, her voice clear and confident as she spoke to her troops. All units establish combat formation Alpha 7. Remember, we are not just fighting for humanity. Today we are showing the galaxy what individual initiative and personal responsibility can accomplish. The alien observers had never seen anything like it. Traditional space combat involved massive ships firing at each other from great distances, with victory going to whoever had the biggest guns or the strongest shields. But humanity had turned warfare into something personal and immediate. Each human soldier was a complete military unit capable of analyzing threats, developing countermeasures, and implementing solutions without waiting for orders from distant commanders. They carried weapons that could be reconfigured instantly for different types of enemies and armor that adapted to environmental conditions, but most importantly, they carried something that no alien species had ever seen in individual soldiers: the ability to think creatively under pressure and make tactical decisions that could change the outcome of entire battles. The Galactic Council observers watched from their ship as 100,000 human soldiers took their positions in space, creating a defensive formation that covered more area than all the alien fleets combined. General Vex contacted Admiral June one more time. Human Admiral, he said, his voice no longer filled with mockery. Your deployment is unlike anything we have seen in galactic warfare history. Each of your soldiers appears to be operating independently, yet they maintain perfect coordination. How do you achieve such control over such large numbers? Admiral June smiled as he looked out at the display showing his soldiers in position. General, we do not control them, we trust them. Every soldier out there is a thinking individual capable of making decisions that could save lives and win battles. That is what makes them more than just soldiers. That is what makes them an army. The alien fleet commanders fell silent as they began to understand what they The deployment pods continued to unfold across space like mechanical flowers blooming in the darkness. Each pod released a single human soldier, but these were not ordinary soldiers in any sense that the alien observers could understand. They were something entirely new in galactic warfare. Each human wore armor that seemed to think for itself. The suits were not just protective gear, but complete life support systems that could operate in any environment, from the vacuum of space to the crushing depths of gas giant atmospheres. The armor could analyze threats and automatically adjust its defensive capabilities while providing the soldier with information about enemy positions and tactical opportunities. But the real revelation came when the alien fleet commanders began to understand the numbers. From 12 relatively small ships, humanity had deployed over 100,000 individual combatants. Each soldier was equipped with personal propulsion systems that made them as maneuverable as fighter craft energy weapons that could be reconfigured for different targets, and most importantly, battlefield computers that connected them to every other soldier in the formation. Commander Soman led the first wave as they established their formation in space. Her voice came through the communication channels, clear and confident as she spoke to her troops. All units, remember your training. Every enemy has a weakness and every situation has a solution. Our job is to find both and apply them creatively. The alien observers watched through their sensors as the human soldiers began to demonstrate capabilities that challenged everything they thought they knew about individual combat. Each soldier carried multiple weapon systems that could be combined in ways that their manufacturers had never intended. Personal shields that could be linked together to create larger defensive barriers, and sensors that could detect enemy movements across vast distances. Lieutenant 1 floated near the perimeter of the formation, studying the tactical displays that appeared on his helmet interface. His squad of 50 soldiers was positioned to intercept any enemy forces that tried to flank the main defensive line, but he was also analyzing the capabilities of the alien fleets around them. Sir, he said to Commander Soman, the alien vessels are impressive, but they all follow predictable patterns. The Valkyrie ships are designed for direct confrontation. The Xanthari cruisers rely on superior shielding. The Mokari bioships adapt to enemy weapons, but slowly. If we face the Scorvian horde, we should be ready to exploit the gaps in their traditional tactics. Commander Solman nodded as she reviewed the same information. Every soldier in the formation was connected to the same tactical network, sharing observations and insights in real time. This was something that no alien species had ever achieved, the ability to coordinate thousands of individual minds while maintaining the independence and creativity that made each soldier effective. The alien fleet commanders watched this coordination with growing amazement. General Vex contacted Admiral June again, his metallic voice filled with curiosity rather than hostility. Human Admiral, your soldiers appear to be operating as a single organism, yet each one maintains individual initiative. How do you train such coordination, Admiral? June stood on the bridge of the Soul, watching his soldiers take their positions in space. We do not train coordination, General. We train trust. Each soldier knows that every other soldier is capable of making good decisions under pressure. They do not need to be told what to do because they understand what needs to be done. The Zentari fleet commander joined the conversation, her crystalline voice ringing across the communication channels. Admiral June, our analysis shows that your soldiers carry weapons and equipment that can be reconfigured for multiple purposes. This appears to be a significant tactical advantage. Captain Minho answered for the Admiral Fleet Commander. Human soldiers are trained to adapt to any situation. They do not carry single-purpose weapons because they do not fight single-purpose battles. Every piece of equipment they carry can be used in multiple ways depending on the tactical situation. The Mokari Bio fleet leader made clicking sounds that translated to words of amazement. Your soldiers appear to be individual thinking entities rather than components of a larger military machine. This is unprecedented in galactic warfare. Admiral June smiled slightly. Bio fleet leader, that is exactly what they are. Each soldier is a complete military unit capable of independent operation and tactical decision-making. They can fight as part of a larger formation or operate alone behind enemy lines. They can analyze enemy weaknesses and develop countermeasures without waiting for orders from command. As the alien observers continued to study the human deployment, they began to understand the true scope of what they were witnessing. These were not just soldiers in the traditional sense. They were individual warriors who could think creatively, adapt to any situation, and implement solutions that no central command could have planned. The human soldiers began conducting training exercises that demonstrated their capabilities to the alien fleets. They formed attack patterns that could change instantly based on enemy movements. They practiced boarding operations that would allow them to take control of enemy vessels from the inside. And they demonstrated the ability to coordinate complex operations across multiple ships simultaneously. Sergeant Yuna led her squad through a simulated attack on a Scorvian vessel using only hand signals and tactical intuition. Her soldiers moved with precision that impressed even the experienced alien commanders. Each soldier knew their role but could adapt instantly if the situation changed. The alien fleet commanders began to realize that they were witnessing something that would change galactic warfare forever. Traditional military doctrine was based on the idea that individual soldiers needed to be controlled and directed by superior officers who could see the bigger picture, but humanity had developed something different. They had created individual soldiers who could see the bigger picture for themselves and make tactical decisions that contributed to the overall success of the mission without sacrificing their ability to handle unexpected situations. General Vex spoke to his own officers privately. The humans have achieved something that our military theorists said was impossible. They have created a military force where every individual soldier is capable of independent tactical command. This gives them advantages that we cannot match with traditional military structure. The Zentari fleet commander was analyzing the human formations with her most advanced sensors. Fleet Admiral, she said to her second in command, the human soldiers are not just following predetermined tactics. They are creating new tactics in real time based on their analysis of the current situation. The Makari Bio fleet leader was even more impressed by what he observed. These humans have achieved something that evolution has never produced, he told his crew. Individual organisms that can think independently while maintaining perfect coordination with their group. This is more advanced than any biological system we have encountered. As the demonstration continued, the alien observers began to understand that humanity had not just brought soldiers to this battle. They had brought something far more dangerous. They had brought 100,000 individual minds, each one capable of creative problem-solving and tactical innovation. The human soldiers finished their exercises and took their positions in the defensive formation. Each soldier knew their role but also understood that they might need to completely change their approach once the battle began. They were prepared for anything because they had been trained to think rather than just follow orders. Admiral June addressed all the fleet commanders through the communication channels. Honored allies, you have now seen what humanity brings to this battle. We do not offer superior technology or overwhelming numbers. We offer something that no enemy can predict or counter. We offer human creativity and adaptability applied to warfare. The alien fleet commanders fell silent as they absorbed the implications of what they had witnessed. The Scorvian horde was about to face an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered. An enemy that could think, adapt, and overcome any challenge through individual initiative and collective intelligence. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when human ingenuity met an unstoppable force.